cannabis, ganja, marijuana, Shuru. Not only many names, but also many opinions about this plant. And the question is, medicine or drug? Throughout this video, you will discover the history of this plant and its influence on ancient peoples and indigenous tribes of the Amazon, in addition to understanding its impact on your body, scientifically, and learning how to use it correctly, if you so choose. Each topic is an essential piece of a much larger puzzle, and you won't want to miss any of them. Cannabis has a rich and ancient history dating back more than 5,000 years, known by various names such as Shuru, ganja, marijuana. This plant has been used in numerous ways over the centuries. Its first recorded uses were in ancient China, where the legendary emperor Shennong used it to treat various diseases. Documented in Pensah Xian, the plant was seen as a source of healing and also as an essential agricultural material thanks to its ability to grow quickly and produce fibers, food, and oils. The spread of cannabis around the world owes much to ancient trade routes, such as the Silk Road, which connected China with Europe. Through these routes, traders transported cannabis seeds, which were valued both for their medicinal properties and their ability to produce hemp. This material was crucial for the production of paper, clothing, and especially ropes, due to its strength and durability. But it was in India that cannabis gained significant spiritual importance. Sadhus, devotees of the god Shiva, consecrated the plant in religious rituals to expand consciousness and strengthen their meditative practices. Known as Bang, cannabis was consecrated in the form of a drink. During festivals like Holi and Mahashivatri, being a sacred offering to Shiva, the Lord of Bang. Due to the Buddhist practices with cannabis, many people traveled to Nepal, coming into contact with great spiritual masters. Also, generating a great exchange of silk between China and India, which eventually led the Chinese to have much greater contact with Buddhism and all its culture. Over the centuries, this plant found its way to various continents, adapting to different cultures and needs. In Europe, its use diversified. They used it in the production of medicines and even in the manufacturing of essential goods. In Africa, cannabis was used both for recreational and medicinal purposes, being an integral part of the traditions of various peoples. The history of cannabis is not just a tale of diverse uses, but also of resilience and adaptation. This plant has crossed millennia, enduring various attempts at eradication and prohibition as well. Its ability to integrate and transform cultures around the world is a sign of its importance and versatility. But it is impossible to talk about cannabis without immediately thinking of one of the most famous cultures for its use, the Rastafarians. Originating in Jamaica around the 1930s, this culture is well known worldwide for its beliefs, practices, and veneration of the Ray of Ceres, or Jah, as well as its diets and fight against the Western system, which they call Babylon. The use of ganja or cannabis attracts everyone's attention. They believe that ganja, when consecrated, brings you closer to the now and provides deep introspection. They consecrate this medicine in a circle where the pipe or chalice, which is a water pipe, is passed around. At this moment, the idea is like a meditation to connect with the now, find inner peace, and also listen to spiritual messages. One of the people responsible for sharing and spreading this culture around the world is our beloved Bob Marley, when through his songs, he brings to us much of this culture, talking about peace, love, and how important it is for us to respect one another. And despite having had little contact, we can see this similarity among all cultures regarding this plant, especially with the indigenous peoples here in Brazil. And this leads us to the following question. How did it arrive? In Brazil, it is believed that it arrived in Brazil through African peoples with the arrival of Europeans, disguised and well protected, in secret from the whites so that the African people could maintain their tradition, and also often endure. the difficult and painful work they went through. And here again, we can already see that since that time, cannabis was treated as a source of joy and relief, as both medicine and a plant of power. But the Huni Kuin people, one of the indigenous tribes of the Amazon, tell a different story and say that Shuru, the name they give to cannabis, was given to them long before the white people arrived. The Huni Kuin claim to be the true bearers of Shuru and use it not only in ceremonies, but also consecrate it along with Nishipin, the name they've given to ayahuasca. But not all indigenous peoples agree on this issue. Each ethnicity has a different culture and perspective. For the Awanawas and Noclacan, for example, who are also two Amazonian ethnic groups. And especially among the elders, crying is not seen as a medicine, and the Awanawas even call it Nawa Ruma, with Nawa meaning non-indigenous, and Ruma meaning tobacco. That is, white man's tobacco. Wait a minute, so is cannabis or Chururuma brought to Brazil, or not? I'm not here to say that one story is right or wrong, especially because different paths lead to the same place. Each people has a completely different view and history with this plant. Chururuma is an ancestral medicine that, through the millennia, has survived all kinds of prejudice to bring clarity and joy to all those who consecrate it with respect. And that's what it's about. The Huni Kuin people, or the BLI people as they call themselves, are an indigenous people who live mainly in the Agur and Amazonas regions. You may have heard the name Kashinawa. This was the name given to the Huni Quins by other ethnic groups, which means that people, but in reality, it is much more of an insult than anything else. It stems from the judgment of some of this people's older practices. So, they called themselves Huni Kuin, which means true people, or people with knowledge. The Huni gained much more attention with the rise of ayahuasca practices by the Nawas, that is, the non-indigenous people, and anyone who has had the honor of participating in a ceremony, or being present with the Huni Kuin, notices the strength that these people carry, always bringing with them a lot of music and dance, and with a wonderful saying that defines these people very well, their joy my chai. In addition to the contagious joy, a lot of snuff, ayahuasca, or nishipin in their language, at some point the Shuru will be brought into the circle. They're like the Rastafari of the forest. They respect and treat this ancestral medicine in the same way they treat the other ancestral medicines of their people. They say that Shuru is, indeed, from the forest, that it is an important part of their culture. The story of Shuru with the Huni Kuin varies. There are many tales and stories of when and how this entity presented itself to them. And I will share here one of the stories that I know. Somewhere in the forest, there was a boy who lived with his grandmother. The lady knew a lot about various plants and medicines, but she didn't share much of her knowledge with anyone. One day, in the middle of the night, he got up from his room and saw that, outside the house, his grandmother was consecrating something in the pipe, but the smell was not of tobacco. He then saw where she kept this pipe, and the next morning when she left, he went there and smoked it, and the boy transformed and understood what it was. After that, he found his grandmother's Shuru plantation hidden behind the house. And still under the influence of Shuru, he built a house with it. From the branches, he made the walls. From the leaves, he arranged the roof, and he stayed there 3 months consecrating the medicine without eating. Only Shuru, until he became a mirror, knowledge of Chururuma when he came out, he began to heal his community. They asked the boy what had happened. He told them about the plant and said they could use it too, but each one should plant their own, because like all healing materials, each one must have their own. Well, now that we have this whole story of how Shuru traveled through we can see that all the peoples who treated it as a medicine, who respected it, who prepared it as a ceremony, saw this plant as a medicine, while the peoples who only use it to enjoy the moment, throughout history considered it a drug and a danger to society. The difference between medicine and poison is the intention. What heals you can also kill you, consuming you in excess, in the wrong way. And now I will bring you some of the teachings of the Huni people on how to consecrate an. What? The medicine is for Shuru medicine, its effects and how it interacts with Nishipin, and why they say they are complementary medicines. Although Chururuma does not have a literal translation, it means something like light consciousness tobacco, and its used by the Huni people could not be different from a name given. They consecrate this medicine with the intention of bringing lightness and joy. But not only that, they explain that Shuru has the ability to make you forget what is not important and focus only on what should be remembered, that the spirit of Shuru will show you what you should do. And this spirit brings the power of divination, making it possible to perceive the subtleties of the universe and the Great Spirit. Some Huni still believe that you should not sleep after consecrating Shuru, as you will lose the messages that the Great Spirit has to tell you, and you will not know what to do during that force. Within the ayahuasca ceremony, the Nishipin, the Shuru plays a fundamental role for them. When we are under the influence of ayahuasca, or Shuru, they explain that Shuru points the direction, it shows the problem to be treated, like an X-ray machine. And once the problem is found, Nishipin brings it to consciousness, to your vision, and thus guides you on the path to healing. These medicines work and function completely on their own if necessary, but when together they each perform at their best. Ayahuasca brings out what is inside and makes you look at all of it, and the Shuru removes everything that doesn't matter and makes you focus only on what matters at that moment, thus aiding in the ayahuasca process. But like any medicine, Shuru is not weak, especially when used with ayahuasca. So, as Anamir once said, Shuru is strong, my friend. It is real medicine. You have to respect the power of the forest. If you have never consecrated before, I recommend you try Shuru before consecrating with ayahuasca. This way you can become a bit more familiar with the sacred medicine. But beyond all this spiritual aspect, what will really happen to me if I consecrate Shuru? Well, like any medicine, each person will react differently when they come into contact with it. The most common effects are relaxation, a feeling of great euphoria, making it even difficult to stop, laughing, as well as bringing you creativity, ideas, and perceptions about things. And at the moment, you ask yourself, how did I never think of this before? THC, the active ingredient in cannabis, also helps to relax the muscles. That is why nowadays it is being extensively studied for use by people with motor diseases such as Parkinson's. And the part that might scare you the most, if you have never had contact with this medicine, is that time will seem to pass more slowly than usual. Sometimes you close your eyes, think about everything and then some. It feels like an eternity of ideas and thoughts. And when you open your eyes, not even 2 minutes have passed. This might seem a bit scary at first, but I can tell you from my own experience, the secret is in letting go of that control. You are only concerned with this passage of time because you are focused on it. At this moment, I recommend you put down the phone and concentrate on the situation. Chat with friends, listen to some music, play a guitar. In other words, there is the moment for which you are proposing yourself. Naturally, we say that all good things come to an end quickly because our mind doesn't notice the passage of time in good situations, but when you want something to end soon, time seems to drag on. So, with or without Chururuma, it's an exercise in presence. And lastly, we have the infamous munchies. After some time, under the influence of ganja, it's common to feel a big hunger. And by the way, it is another reason to be used in the medical field, as many times patients with HIV or cancer have a lot of difficulty feeling appetite. This used to help with appetite is also being studied. Sometimes you feel silly and happy. Sometimes you become introspective and reflect on life. Every time you come into contact with this medicine, it is completely different. It feels like the first time all over again. But one thing, I guarantee you, the Shuru is different from what you are used to. And it's as if it takes the reins off creativity, allowing it to dance This is very important when we are looking at a situation and need to have a complete overview of things. We also need to understand that each organism is different and each person is unique. So cannabis, the Shuru, will come to each person in a different way. For some, it is that person's medicine. For others, it is something completely strange. In these cases, we always try to understand what the lesson is. In terms of intense processes, BADs or PAs, as we call them in ayahuasca cannabis, can also provide you with that. A relatively common effect, which is strong and some people have already experienced and will probably identify with, is the effect of derealization, which is when you feel as if you are in another dimension and the reality you are in at that moment seems disconnected, as if you were looking at everything from above. For some people, this effect is quite frightening, especially if you have never gone through an experience like this before. Today, I can say that I see this as a learning experience and in a completely different way, because it expands your consciousness and can put you in a state as if it were a higher vision. This state of derealization is very important for you to understand more deeply what your consciousness is, and that you are not your mind, and you are also not your body. And when we understand this, we can stop clinging to so many things. So, just like with ayahuasca, for example, in these intense processes, it comes to teach us a lot, and this is what I have learned from it. I am sure that everyone here watching this video and who has already consecrated this medicine must also have many learnings from it. And it is always important for us to be conscious of our thoughts. It is very easy for us to get lost in our thoughts, I swear. Sometimes you dwell too much on the past or think too much about the future. It is a plant that gives you its best, but only when you honor it. Use it truly, with consciousness, presence, and joy. It is a plant that gives you its best, but it reflects your inner state. The best of the consciousness expansion it can deliver to you is when you use it in the present, in silence, and in joy. When the years, it takes us on a different path. There's a way to get lost in our own thoughts and the suffering that our mind can cause us. So, it is very important that we take this care. It is also important to emphasize that we should always consecrate this medicine in its pure form. We smoke it in the form of pressed, as we know it here in Brazil. For example, it comes mixed with a lot of things to make it last longer, a lot of toxins too. And that in itself already takes you to another place. When we consecrate it in its pure form, we have two origins of the plant that impact how the effect manifests in our body: the sativa, the indica, or the hybrids. The effect of the indica is usually referred to as the stone, meaning it focuses more on the body. It can intensify certain physical sensations, such as taste, touch, or hearing. The effect of indica is known to be relaxing, mentally and physically. In large quantities, it can have a more sedative effect, so to speak. Sativas, on the other hand, are appreciated for their more euphoric effect. It can be characterized as something more cerebral, more energetic, creative, euphoric. Both the impact of the effect and the likelihood of causing sleepiness are much lower than with indica. Unfortunately, in Brazil, because it is not a legalized medicine, we don't have many options to choose from. But the main point about the use of this medicine lies in its intensity. I am not here to make you use this medicine, but to bring you a slightly different awareness about it. If we use this medicine honoring it in a pure way, with a clear intention, then we can extract the best it offers, bringing us closer to the truth about ourselves and not keeping us in patterns of thought. Before consecrating any medicine, it is always important to ask ourselves what our intention is with this consecration. Bring the intention in your heart so that he may pray. And this is not just for the medicines. When we understand the power of our intentions and energy, we can see the power of the direction we give to things. So, pray to your Shuru before lighting it. Talk to it. After all, You are in the presence of an ancient, living entity. And always remember, when we are slightly expanded because of some medicine, all our senses are heightened. So the music, or the environment we are in, can be perceived in a different way. That's why a safe place is important. Or songs that speak of good things, or even silence itself. For those who have a heightened sensitivity to the environments they frequent, Churaruma is best enjoyed with good company, and focus on joy, because it is from this joy that we can bring lightness to these moments. There are some practices that teach that when you consecrate Shuru, you should form a circle, and while it is being served, there should be silence, so that everyone can focus on their own process. The Sonico, consecrate by bringing a wonderful joy and happiness, always with a lot of music and dance, and of course, just joy, my friend. Every time you have the opportunity to be in the presence of this living entity, which is Shuru, whether to contemplate the silence and hear the wisdom about yourself and the universe, or to bring focus to your heart on how you should dance, sing, and have fun, the important thing is to silence the mind, and then you will understand that you already know what needs to be done. The wisdom of Churaruma is powerful, and like any medicine, it is wild, and sometimes we can have challenging and difficult moments under the influence of Churaruma. At this moment, your mind will want to take control. You will want it to end soon, but remember that the force is like a river. If you swim against it or struggle, you will drown. Let the river carry you, and enjoy the journey. Focus on your breathing, and ask yourself, what does this have to teach me? When we learn the lesson, the master dissolves. And that's why, in my view, when we are consecrating it, we need to understand that it is a consciousness expander. And the intention we set, the environment in which you consecrate, the influences of the present moment you are in, determine where it will take you. I really like to use it with the intention of silence, of joy, and creativity. I believe that the medicine of cannabis is not a medicine that we should use to seek centering, to seek productivity. It is a medicine that expands you and gives you a different perspective on things, placing you in the present moment, feeling things much more intensely. That's why it's much easier to have ideas and be in a creative moment. And it is for these moments, in a very specific way, that I like to use this medicine. If we use it in any way, seeking only a feeling of relaxation, for example, that's when it will start to take you down another path. We need to have a relationship with this medicine and not let it control us, because then it becomes an addiction. It becomes a crutch. And as I said before, it will take you to another place. So, every time I fell into disuse with this medicine, it was only because I was seeking a sensation and not truly consecrating it, honoring it as it should be honored. And I always noticed this by looking, because I needed to do something. So, I'm going to do something. Oh, I need to smoke one first. Whenever that happened, it was where she gradually led me down another path. A path that led me to be trapped in my own mind. And that's where you become unproductive, with no desire to do anything. And that's where you're extracting the worst it can give you. That's where the stigma of the lazy, but for nothing pothead comes from. If you use it correctly, consecrating, honoring, using it in a timely manner, understanding what it is for, it will lead you to the best path. And it is about this awareness that this video is about. For me, this is what differentiates it from becoming and being considered a drug, an addiction, a crutch, and it being treated, used as a natural medicine. Indeed, in addition to its spiritual healing properties, Shuru is also used by the Huni people as a physical treatment, as a cure, as medicine. Making a Shuru tea for the treatment of gastritis, for example, ulcers, spleen problems, among other benefits as well. It can also be mixed with other plants and herbs to produce a syrup, for example, and even made into a paste to treat severe wounds. As said by the chai, applying it to the area helps with healing and cleaning the site. As always, the indigenous people emphasize that everything we need is in the forest, is in nature, and that Shuru is indeed a medicine, a powerful plant that carries a powerful spirit. But over the years, the Nawaz distort this medicine and its uses. The wisdom of the Huni Kuin people does not stop at the medicinal, physical, and spiritual aspects, but they also teach us that Shuru brings news. They say that the more you study and understand the power of this medicine, the easier it becomes for you to receive the messages from this entity. Through this strength, you can plan and feel with your heart what should be done in the face of a problem or situation. The Shuru announces and prepares for what is to come. It is a force that pronounces and therefore delivers, and wisdom is of no use if not applied. So they emphasize that it is important for us to apply what Shuru brings us to honor this received wisdom. All medicines are indeed a wonderful portal for us to learn more about ourselves. But we are here now immaterial, right? We exist. In this reality too, the difference between a cure and a poison is the dose, and natural medicines are not a crutch. They're a bridge. The lesson is always to learn from them and put it into practice in our daily lives. The real work begins when the effect wears off, because within the strength of a medicine, expanded within our field or current, we feel this clearer contact with spirituality and with the whole. But we cannot think that the medicine is what will solve our problems. An addiction comes precisely from this need and belief that that substance, or even a medicine, is the solution to your problems. The only person who can solve your problems is you. And the medicines are there precisely to show you that. They bring out things that we often cannot see, but the choice is yours whether you want to fight against it or learn from it. Respecting the medicines also means using them with awareness. And now that you can deeply understand the rich and diverse history of cannabis, the central question is how we apply this understanding. The goal is not just to know its origins, but to recognize its spiritual and cultural importance over the centuries. Knowing the history of cannabis is essential for us to recognize its role in the quest for healing and spiritual connection. Knowing the origins of this plant helps us transcend prejudices and appreciate its true essence. The goal is not just to truly revere cannabis for its positive and beneficial influence. For those who see cannabis as a source of wisdom and healing, there are practices and disciplines that honor it as a spirit and ancestral being. Various peoples have created their own diverse rituals with this sacred plant. If it is with respect and love for yourself and the medicine you are consecrating, you will see that all these rituals lead you to the same place. In fact, recognizing the impermanence and constant change in our world is crucial. It is important for more people to become aware of the significance of this concept. By understanding that everything around us is in a state of flux, individuals can better appreciate the transient nature of life. This awareness can lead to a deeper appreciation of the present moment and a more mindful approach to living. Embracing change and recognizing its inevitability can help people adapt more effectively to the challenges they face. This is an in-depth video on the Huni teachings of cannabis, sharing a bit about the history of the plant and its ancestral teachings. So, take what makes sense to you. And most importantly, the secret is in the next video. May all beings benefit from these teachings. Akilalik. See you in the next video.